Hi, I'm Marie-Ève, and in this video we're going to be talking about conformation. First of all, let's define what conformation is before we start talking about the concept of storyboard conformation. What is the definition of conforming? So first of all is to give the same shape, outline, or contour as something else. So it's to make something correspond to a model or a plan. So what does it mean to conform in a storyboarding context? So it means to match the storyboard with the animatic. So in Storyboard Pro, it is to match the storyboard with the animatic created in a third-party application, meaning a storyboard would be created in Storyboard Pro and an animatic would be created in a third party such as Final Cut Pro, for example. And then you would want to match back the timing, the panels, transition, camera work, and sound that would have been modified in the third-party application. So instead of doing that manually, Storyboard Pro offers you features to be able to conform back automatically from the third-party application. So in order to use this automated conformation, you need to export the source storyboard for creating the animatic from an actual Storyboard Pro project. Why do we need to conform storyboards? Animators, either in-house or overseas, will be using the printed version or the PDF versions of the storyboard to create the layout or animation. So it's really important that it matches any changes that would have been done during the animatic process, such as adding new panels, changing scene orders, adding new transitions, and so on. So they need to match the animatic so that everybody involved in the project will be able to work consistently. Beside that, there's also retake and approvals. While the storyboard is completed, it's possible that the director will come in and make some changes while the animatic is being created. The director may decide to add some new panels or even remove some or reorder some scenes. And so these changes needs to be conformed back in the storyboard so that, again, they could be pushed to the other people using the paper or digital version of the storyboard. Storyboard Pro and the third-party application have different features. Therefore, it's important to understand what will be exported from Storyboard Pro to this third-party application to be able to create the animatic. Panels are exported as clips in the top composition. The first frame of each panel is used as the source image. And then for the XML export only, layers can be exported individually inside nested clips. Therefore, layer motions and keyframe will be exported when using this option. And that is not for the AAF, but only for the XML conformation. There will also be the transition types and duration. And in a further video, I'll give you more details about the way transitions are exported to the third-party application. Sound clips, including the start and end frame, as well as volume keyframes, will be exported. The camera motions are also exported as clip animation. If you want to, you also have the option to export the first frame as a marker for each scene. So in your third-party application, you will see a marker at the beginning of each scene in your timeline. You can also export the captions as metadata. Important information regarding the clips and the IDs of the different panels will automatically be exported as metadata, but you can decide to also have your caption, for example, dialogue and action notes as metadata as well. And then finally, you can also export a reference track so that you can see it's just a blank track that will have empty panels just to give you the beginning and end of each scene. So it's just a different way of doing the marker. Before we go any further, let's define what is metadata. When you look up that term, it may not mean much to you because often it says it's data that will define other data. And so it's like there's a lot of word data thrown around. It's like, what does it mean? So if we try to simplify that definition a little bit, it means a summary of basic information about data. Okay, what is data in this case? It could be a book, a music file, a document. And the metadata is there to answer questions about it like who, what, when, and where. Therefore, for example, The metadata for a book could be its author, the book title, the publication date, and country of origin. Those are just basic examples of what it could be. So for example, your music library on your mobile device will be using a lot of metadata to sort, organize, and find all the different music files or, for example, book files that you have on your device. Now that we have exported all the files to the third-party application to create the animatic, it's important to understand what is conformed back into Storyboard Pro. Again, the same way as Storyboard Pro has its own set of information that will be exported to the third-party application, the other software that you may be using will have a series of features that are not available necessarily in Storyboard Pro. Therefore, not all the modifications you would be doing in the animatic would be conformed back into Storyboard Pro. So therefore, the first thing that will be conformed back is the panel ordering and duration. So if you change your timing or change the order of your scenes or panels, that will be conformed back in Storyboard Pro. If you duplicated the panels, the original panel will also be duplicated in the Storyboard Pro project. If you deleted panels or scenes, these will also be removed when you conform back in Storyboard Pro. And if you added new clips as panels, the source image from the animatic will also be imported as a new panel and the image imported inside of it in Storyboard Pro. Also, if you did any modification or added new layers inside nested clip, they will be imported back in Storyboard Pro as extra layer in the panel. And if you did animations on it, it will be converted into layer animation. So if you did clip adjustment, for example, you will see that as a layer animation in Storyboard Pro. And that only applies to the XML conformation. That does not work with the AAF conformation. Next, if you changed your transition types and adjusted the duration of the transition, this will also be imported back in Storyboard Pro. We'll talk about what transition types are supported or not one way or the other later on in the additional videos about conformation. Also, if you did some clip adjustments on your different panels in the animatic, this will be transposed as a camera motion in Storyboard Pro. So therefore you have camera moves that will go as clip adjustment in the third-party application. If you want to do additional camera moves by doing clip adjustment, you will do that in your third-party application and it will be brought back as a camera motion in Storyboard Pro. And finally, anything you will do with sounds, adding new clips, changing the duration, removing clips, adjusting the volume keyframes, all of that will also be conformed back into Storyboard Pro. So that was it for the general overview of conformation between Storyboard Pro and a third-party application. You will learn more about XML and AAF conformation in the next videos.